no one's saying that Steph can't be great occasionally. The days of him carrying this organization on their backs to a decent seed and then having enough requisite energy to then drag them through the playoffs, I just think those days are over. And I look at the Warriors right now and I say to myself, all right, look, you're not a championship contender. Rocky had a bad year. Can you bounce back the way Jared Goff has kind of bounced back and reinvented himself over the last couple of versions, whether it was at the end of the Rams run and his beginning with Detroit or this year in particular? He's evolved as a player.
We got Lions. We got Niners tonight. Lomas Brown, former offensive tackle, played for the Lions for over 11 seasons, and is their current radio color analyst for 97.1 The Ticket, our sister station out in Detroit. It is an Odyssey station. He's joining us at 9:20 for a breakdown and a preview of this matchup. And we brought up In-N-Out Burger because I was sitting next to some people yesterday, Joe Shasky, when I was eating at In-N-Out Burger in San Carlos. And I just overheard the conversation. I wasn't eavesdropping or anything. Thank you. And they're just talking about, oh yeah, we're going to Levi's Stadium tomorrow. I can't wait. I was like, they're going to an event. Oh, Levi's. Okay, yeah, it's the game tomorrow. So they're going to the Lions game, and they had like a Midwest accent kind of. So I was like, okay, they're probably Detroit Lions fans. And they was like, wow, yeah, this is a new stadium. We've never been here. Oh, Candlestick. It was so hard getting out of there. The ingress, egress. The people, clearly Lions fans that have been to Candlestick before. And they were just so excited about going to Levi's Stadium.
Really?
They were so excited that it was like, this is a brand new stadium, basically. It opened back a decade ago. It was like, and I was just like, should I tell them?
Should I tell them what?
It doesn't feel like a brand new stadium.
Well, it's 10 years old. This is the 10th year.
Right? Like 10 years is a long time. I wanted to tell them in regards to all the new stadiums that we've seen, whether it comes to SoFi Stadium, Allegiant, Mercedes-Benz. It just, I'm not saying that Levi's is bad. I think it's actually grown a lot more on me as the years have gone. It actually has like somewhat of a soul now, given all the playoff history that's taken place. They're undefeated there in the playoffs. Never lost there. There is something to be said about that. But tonight, Joe Shasky, this is where the Lions season ended at the earlier part of this calendar year. It's where, and they feel like they choked it away. And for the most part, they did. Like the Lions had no business losing that game with the lead they had. Dan Campbell does Dan Campbell things. I think people are they're going to overanalyze it and say, you know what, Dan Campbell was overthinking it. No, they had the right play call. It was dropped. But momentum's a funny thing in sports, and that cost them, and they lost the game. I think they're going to go out for blood tonight, though. What they saw yesterday in regards to their own divisional rivals, the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings, and Sam Darnold you said it before the show. Is he having a Rich Gannon-like resurgence?
It's incredible.
He wasn't as old as Rich was when he had his resurgence at an MVP year, but he just looks like, is this going to be the Sam Darnold we're going to see going forward? He looks incredible.
Unbelievable.
But if you're a Lions fan watching that yesterday, and if you're Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and go, oh, okay, yeah, next week on Sunday Night Football, we're going to play for the number 1 overall seed. Okay, yeah, we're going to show everyone today why we're the best team, not just in the NFC, but in the National Football League.
I think that Super Bowl loss, the way it happened, we have just completely forgotten about that NFC Championship game. It feels like a lifetime ago. The difference in that game, if we go back to it, everyone's going to bring up the Ayuk catch, which was amazing. The difference in that game for me was the inability of Jared Goff to be able to move in the pocket and make a play once he had to kind of reset his feet, and the ability of Brock Purdy to scramble. And if I look at this year and one of the big kind of like, wow, what's going on with Purdy? He scrambled this year and he's ran for some yards, but he hasn't been able to make those throws down the field like he has in the last couple of years. And I look back at that game and it's like Debo was on fire. Ayuk's making plays. Christian McCaffrey had a big run in that one. Nick Bosa was an absolute menace. I don't even think he registered a sack in that game, but he was an unbelievable menace. Trent Williams was playing pretty admirably against Aiden Hutchinson, and the fourth down defense for the Niners was suffocating, even though Reynolds dropped 2 balls. Special teams was actually good in that game, and they wiped away that deficit in seconds. That third quarter is one of the great third quarters in Niner history, and it just feels like it's lost in time because of the way you lost in overtime to the Chiefs.
It's one of those things, right? And I'm not comparing it to the Warriors in 2016, obviously, but you forget about all those playoff series. Like, there is something about that Oklahoma City series, like, we remember it and it's great and stuff like that, but also like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter, right? Because he ended up just losing the whole damn thing. So there's nice moments involved in there, but especially with a franchise like the San Francisco 49ers. How'd that happen to, let's say, the Detroit Lions, who don't have any history of the Super Bowl? They've never been to a Super Bowl. Like, that's one thing. Like, that's them getting to an NFC championship last year. That was their high watermark. Like, them having that lead, no one's going to forget that. If they never win a Super Bowl, like in our lifetime or the next 30, 40 years, that's what they're always going to remember. Getting that so close. They had that lead and it's just, they choked it away. That's what they remember. So that's why I think they're going to come out with their hair on fire tonight.
The Detroit Lions hadn't won a playoff game on the road since 1957 when they beat the Niners at Kezar.
It's unbelievable.
It's one of the craziest with Dick Night Train Lane. Yes, that's a name. That's a real name. Go look him up. Like, yeah, it's
the level of ineptitude when it comes to teams in the NFL. It's the NFC, it's the Lions, and the AFC is the Browns. Like, those are the two teams where it's just like nothing can go right for them.
Absolutely nothing. And that's why, what they did this year was remarkable, to come back and basically clinch the number 1 seed with 2 weeks to go. I mean, it's pretty. Now, I know they have to win next week, but it's pretty incredible, the season that they've had. Going back to the Niner thing from the NFC Championship game, because I think the Niners have a lot to play for. We'll get to that at some point. But when I think about some of the great plays in 49er playoff history that get lost, the Christian McCaffrey run in Philadelphia, we don't even think about. We literally don't even think about it.
You were there.
Because of the Brock injury. And that's just a play in the middle of the game. But he broke like 1,000 tackles and was just absolutely spectacular. I think about a lot the Kaepernick comeback in Green Bay when it was the frozen tundra and the ground is literally brown and Frank Gore sets that block and they set it up to get a field goal with no time on the clock and Harbaugh's wearing 7 different pairs of khakis. I think about that amazing game against the New Orleans Saints. It was our first playoff game in close to a decade. The entire place is standing. You have the Pierre Thomas hit by Dante Whitner. Like, that was with the Vernon Davis post. All great moments.
I've never cheered harder for the 49ers that day against the Saints because I could not stand Drew Brees and Sean Payton as a combination.
I hated them.
Yeah, me too.
They should have won that game. If Jimmy Graham goes down at the 3-yard line, they win that game. They just hang on to it, ice the game, kick it out. It was spectacular. And for Alex to do that, given who Alex was at his point in his career, for the Niners to do that with that drought that they had for so long in the playoffs, it was the first home game since 2002 or whatever it was in the playoffs, 2003 against the New York Giants. Like, there was a lot of things converging there. But all of those ones, like, there was a reason why we've stuck and we've remembered those. Like, I brought up that Alex moment to Vernon Davis. That's Vernon's high watermark for his career. That's Alex's high watermark as a 49er. That final 5 minutes. And it sticks and lives in infamy. Why does the Steve Young play with Terrell Owens stick in infamy for so long? Because it took us forever to get through the Packers. And it ended up being Mike Holmgren's final game. And he was a local guy. And we finally beat him with the Packers. And Steve finally got the best of them. And T.O. had dropped 1,000 balls. And it felt like there was the arrival of T.O., at that particular moment. Him crying and Mariucci embracing him. And so many guys for the Packers having that be their final Packer moment. I think that this Detroit Lion win for the Niners in the NFC Championship game was a special win. I just don't know how we're going to view it in 10 or 15 years because I can't get over not knowing the overtime rules and losing to Mahomes.
Right.
We had that game. And now I look back at this year and this weekend of football that was going on. And it was a great weekend of football, Joe.
Oh, my God.
I couldn't really enjoy it because, like, my Niners aren't involved at all in the playoffs. And it makes me so tremendously sad.
You know what makes me tremendously sad, as you were saying, overtime rules of Kyle Shanahan? Some of these coaches, and that was my main takeaway over the weekend, Raheem Morris not knowing you have 2 timeouts. Zach Taylor, what are you doing? Just ice the game. Take a knee. Rush it for a yard. I know your running back, Chase Brown, went down. And he looked like he's blew out his knee. I don't know what his status is right now, but it's just Joe Burrow had to win a game 3 different times. He had to win a game 3 different times and won against the Broncos to keep their season alive. By the way, Bo Nix, he's been impressing me. He's been making me eat my words over in the season where I said you can't trust a quarterback that's been in college that long and is not a doctor. And Bo Nix, but so shout out to him and the Broncos. They're going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to be a playoff team. Now there's still a lot to be played for this weekend. I think they're going to do it. Chargers, they're in. It's going to be interesting to see the seeding wise, whether it's going to be the Bills playing them, the Ravens, what have you. But it does suck that we're at this stage, and it's so much fun to watch all these different machinations happening. And the Niners just aren't. What do they have to play for? And you're going to tell me something they have to play for because I'm struggling to see a silver lining here Joe Shasky. Shout out Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence, Silver Linings Playbook.
So let me give you the silver line. And like, I think everybody's been viewing this a little distorted. Like, I think we're obsessed with our players, and I get it. Like, they've retained all your favorite players, and I understand that, and you like those guys, but you also have to get younger. I'm looking at some teams around the league, and look, these are one-year wonders, so we'll see if they're sustainable. Washington had the number 2 overall pick last year.
Certainly
Now,
did.
they nailed the quarterback, it feels like. We'll see if he can back the year up that he had this year, right? Like, C.J. Stroud is learning, and Brock Purdy is learning. It's really difficult to be great year in, year out, right? But when I look at Washington, they traded away all those defensive players that we knew. Montez Sweat, Chase Young. Mm-hmm. I can't really name a defender on their team casually, and their defense is pretty solid. They've got Terry McLaurin on offense and one of the 1,000 Robinson running backs.
They still got my boy Deron Payne. Shout out Alabama.
Okay.
It's a sick name.
Jared Allen.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, whatever the guy's name, the defensive lineman from Alabama. But the point stands that I think most casual football fans couldn't name too many Washington defenders. They moved off all those guys, and they feel like this is the weakest version, at least in their heads, because of the money and how they're going to move going forward, and now they're a desirable location. They've got a lot of picks. They feel like this is the weakest version of our team right now, and we're going to be better moving forward. I look at a team like the Broncos, who you referenced, and they're going to probably make the playoffs. They ate a ton of dead cap money with Russell Wilson, and they've kind of bounced back, and they figured it out, and they're actually having a great year. Mm-hmm. When I look at the Niners situation, we can move a guy or two that you all like. I don't know who it is. Maybe they keep Debo. Maybe they move Debo. Maybe they keep Trent. Maybe they move Trent. But it's not like everything's barren moving forward, and they can't overcome this. They have to draft well. They have to be smart with their money. They have to get guys back who have been injured, CMC and Brandon Ayuk. But you can turn things around in the NFL. 7 weeks ago, I thought Bryce Young was not an NFL player. Now I'm like, you know what? Maybe he's middle of the pack. Yeah. Things change quickly. Now, the quarterback's got to play better. Yeah. The head coach has got to kind of shake some things up. They've got to nail this draft. They need young players to continue to develop. But as I look around the NFL right now, and I know it feels really bleak, and I'm sad that the Niners have basically been mathematically eliminated for a month left to go in the season, they can get right back where they need to be in one offseason. I'm looking at the Eagles, and they look like a completely different organization with a lot of the same guys from last year. A couple of tweaks.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. That's
Jonathan Kuminga should be getting the torch from Steph Curry. We should not be trying to trade this guy away. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Shame on all of us. It's not his fault. He's the best draft pick since the Draymond, Clay, Steph Curry days. I love Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney's a role player. Kevon has been a great warrior. But in terms of passing the torch to someone, Jonathan Kuminga is the guy we've been waiting for. And yes, it's a little bumpy, and it's going to be bumpy moving forward. But there is no trade scenario that I see that's realistic that makes the Warriors champions with Steph Curry as the lead dog right now. I love Steph, but watch the games, people. Have you been watching the games? He's not the same. Get on my back. I will carry you for 75 nights a year. He's just not that guy anymore. Now, Jonathan Kuminga, in the last month, has surged. Ever since everybody wanted to trade him for Cam Johnson and this guy and that guy, Jonathan Kuminga, we should be planting our flag on as the next guy that we're building around post Steph Curry, not trading him away to run for the 6th seed to try to chase some fake title that's never going to happen. Jonathan Kuminga deserves his flowers, and we need to celebrate him. And I'm done trying to trade him away. If anything, this organization should be trying to empower him. Draymond, get out of the way. You're playing the 5. You're playing 20 minutes a night. Steph Curry, you could still be the main thing that everything rules around, but we are going to run stuff specifically in certain situations for Jonathan Kuminga. Stop trying to marginalize him, and let's prop this guy up.
888-957-9570. You just heard it from Joe Shasky right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Tired of it.
Is it time to build? The time is now to build around Jonathan Kuminga, is what you're saying, Joe Shasky.
No, what I'm saying
you build around him. No. You have Steph,
yes,
and you're not moving off Steph. Stephen Curry's a made man, but you're seeing the decline. Yes. You're seeing the writing on the wall. The future is youth with the Golden State. It always is. No matter what. You're not going to get better as you get old. Yes, LeBron James and Stephen Curry are amazing. They put on a show on Christmas. It's awesome. That's not happening every day.
No.
They're having LeBron just missed a game this weekend because he had a tummy ache. And Steph's going to miss games because he has knee tendonitis. These guys are old. You can see the writing on the wall. Now, the Lakers, they have Anthony Davis. They have a guy that's 30, 31. They are a parent, right? The Warriors, you have Jonathan Kuminga still. You have Andrew Wiggins is 29. He's not 30 yet. You have pieces here to still build around post Stephen Curry to be excited about. Why are you trying to move off of them for a 50-year-old Jimmy Butler? Now, if you have a reason why, I want to hear from the callers here, 888-957-9570. Do you disagree with Joe Shasky? Do you disagree that, you know what, no, Jonathan Kuminga is not the guy to be building around? I want to hear from you too. Or if you agree with Shasky, same thing. 888-957-9570 is the number.
I want to hit people with like the reality check. Don't just box score watch the games, all right? Does Kuminga make a lot of mistakes? Yeah. He's a young ascending player who's going to make mistakes. Why is our tolerance level at 0 for this young man? We need to be more tolerant of his mistakes. Draymond's making mistakes left and right. Now, he does winning plays as well, and so does Kuminga. Kuminga has made a lot of winning plays. And this isn't about a 30-point game in the loss on Friday night. This is about what I've been watching for a month, okay? Now, a month doesn't make you a great basketball player, but we can see where this is going. Steph Curry, since the calendar has turned to December, how many 30-point games does Steph have?
Oh, man, that's a game show music. 1?
3.
Wow.
How many does Jonathan Kuminga have since December 1st?
4?
3.
3. Wow.
Number 3.
Now, do you know his points, everything? No. But this guy gets to the free throw line, which they failed to do since Durant left. This is a guy
12 attempts on Saturday.
What?
12 attempts for him at the line.
He's dynamic.
More than the entire team combined.
The reality that Warrior fans need to come to grips with is this team is not a contender. And that's okay. You can still have a lot of fun.
Not a championship contender. They can make a playoff. They can
Absolutely.
They may win a series potentially.
But I'm not trading Jonathan Kuminga for Jimmy Butler, Cam Johnson, for some fake attempt at a title that's never going to be realized because the team is not good enough. A team built around a bunch of 36-year-olds is not getting out of the box. All right? Now, I'm not saying that you'll ever win a championship with Jonathan Kuminga, but as an organization, this is the young player that you need to be empowering to hand the baton to, not this year, but down the line, not trading him away. Why are we so quick to crush this guy? And then he has a great game with Steph and Draymond on the floor, and he's the guy who closed that game out.
Well, that's
He's the guy.
That's the one that's most encouraging for me, Joe Shasky, because it's one thing to do it and have a 30-burger on, going back to In-N-Out, a 30-burger on Friday against the Los Angeles Clippers when you don't have Steph and you don't have Dre. It's like, okay, you're the guy. But when those two come back and those two need their touches and Draymond Green needs the ball in his hands and Stephen Curry needs to get up 22 shots and only going 9 from 22, 4 of 13 from beyond the arc, like to have that performance off the bench and not bat an eye, it does feel like he's turned a corner both in his maturity on and off the court. So much so that the head coach, Steve Kerr, has taken notice.
I just think he's turning a corner. I just think he's, he's seeing the pictures well. He made a play late in the game where he swung the ball to Draymond, immediately pinned in for Steph, and Steph got a 3. He didn't make it, but that's the play where you have to recognize Steph's your teammate. You know, you see he's cutting through the lane, swing the ball, and go set a screen for him. And those are the type of plays that if he makes, and he's doing what he's doing, getting downhill, getting fouled, getting to the rim. Now the mix, the blend of Steph, Draymond, JK, now it starts to really get powerful. And I'm so impressed with JK. It just feels like he's turning a corner, and he played so hard last night and again tonight. The rebound at the end, just before he got fouled, he came out of nowhere along the baseline to make that play. I think he had about 7 boards in the second half. It was fantastic, man. This is exactly what we're looking for, and it's fun to see him, deliver.
And that was Steve Kerr, obviously, after the Golden State Warriors 109-105 victory over the Phoenix Suns on Saturday to improve to 16-15 on the year, 8-7 at home. And you are listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco and Odyssey Sports Station, always live on the free Odyssey app. Lomas Brown, Detroit Lions radio color analyst, joining us at 9:20. Obviously, the Warriors back in action tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers. We got a lot to get into when it comes to Bay Area sports right now. Corbin Burns spurned the Giants potentially, going to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So much we're getting into. But right now, the focus is on Jonathan Kuminga, the future of the Golden State Warriors. Joe Shasky. We got Oreo Cookie and Robin San-Bruno on the line. Real quick, to you guys, your thoughts on that, Joe Shasky. Kuminga's turning a corner, and the fact that Steve Kerr is saying that's significant, because it feels like if I'm someone on the outside looking in, or even if I'm a Golden State Warriors fan, it felt like constantly Kuminga was just always doing it. In Steve Kerr's eyes, it wasn't enough. Whether it's him, whether it's Moses Moody, whether it's sometimes it's Brandon Pajemski, like the young guys could never do enough in Steve Kerr's eyes is how it felt.
And to the fans.
And to the fans.
And the fans were spoiled. And the tolerance level for young players was out of control. And look, I'm raising my hand. I have been guilty of this as well. But like, let me do the exercise. Since the 2012 draft, when I felt like Warrior fans were just so excited, Harrison Barnes, Festus, Draymond Green, and Kuzmic, a different Kuzmic, okay? This is who they've drafted. Kevon Looney, Damian Jones, Jacob Evans, Pascal, Jordan Poole. Now, Jordan Poole has an argument as the best draft pick. Jessup, Nico Mannion, James Wiseman, Moses Moody, Kuminga, Guy Santos, Patrick Baldwin, Brandon Pajemski, and Quentin Post. Outside of Jordan Poole, it is head and shoulders. Jonathan Kuminga is your best draft pick. And I love Kevon Looney. He has been a really good player. He's a role player. Like, he's not going to be a frontline player. He's a role player. I love him. I think he brings a lot to the table. This is the best draft pick in 12 years, potentially, and people just want to kick him at every single turn and never want to empower him. I'm tired of it. I am done questioning him. And there's a whole Draymond aspect to this and the positions and all that. We'll get to it, but let's get to the callers. This is the guy we should be handing the baton to down the line, not trying to trade away in the trade machine.
Oreo Cookie out in Oakland wants to join in the conversation. 888-957-9570. You can hit us up via call or text, the Comcast Biz text line. What's going on, Oreo? You're almost Spadoni and Shasky on the Morning Roast.
Hey, what it do? Yeah, man. You guys are right. Shasky, you're totally right. Kuminga has finally come into his own. It sucks that he had to go through the media to finally get some playing time, but I think that's what it is. It was just he had to get consistent, and he had to be on the floor. Having said that, Curry and Kuminga are the only two that I would not trade. Number one on my list is the champion of change. I don't see him changing. He's going back to the old him. His body language to me is weird. It sucks to me, man. He complains about every single call. Give me a break, man. That's going to go down to the youngsters. That's setting a very bad example. He's been doing this so much. Number one on my list to get out of here is that dark cloud that keeps hanging over us. With him gone, I think we'd have a better culture.
You're talking about Draymond Green. Well, there's a whole Draymond Green element to me when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga. Draymond at the beginning of the year was trying to force Kuminga to the three because he knew that if Jonathan Kuminga plays the three, then Draymond conceivably is playing the four. And then he can have TJD at the five. Dre, I'm sorry. The best version of the Warriors, you're the five. It sucks. Yes, you can't be a 30-minute-a-night guy. You're not, though. Your body's already breaking down. Draymond is a 19 to 23-a-minute-a-night guy at the five. At the five. Kuminga's your four. Look at the spacing. And when you have TJD on the floor with Kuminga, your spacing isn't as good because Draymond wants to handle the ball at the top of the key. He's kind of like a point center, point forward, which is fine. But Draymond needs to acknowledge this is him suffocating Kuminga is why this team has failed to take the leap forward and why Kuminga hasn't. You can even play the sound from the beginning of the year.
I will. This is from October 3rd of this year on why Draymond Green does not think Kuminga can play the power forward position.
I think he's a three. It's always been my opinion. That's going to change. That's not going to change. I think, to play the four, it requires a certain skill set. So oftentimes people approach the fours if it's not a position. You think I can just move a guy there. No, it's a position that you have to know how to play. It's like, you never hear, you don't think anybody can play point guard. The four is the same thing. It requires a certain skill set, a certain knowledge, a certain understanding of that position to do that. He's never done it. Can he adjust and learn that? I don't know. Can a receiver learn how to be a quarterback in 2 years? So,
I think that analogy is completely different to me. Don't even compare playing receiver to playing a quarterback It's just not even close to being a 3 or a 4. Jonathan Kuminga is 22 years old, and the guy has so much raw talent in his little finger compared to a guy like, I'm not going to say Draymond. Listen, the physical attributes of a Jonathan Kuminga, yeah, if I'm a Draymond Green, it might be hard to switch that at times, but I'm not putting any limits on what Jonathan Kuminga can and can't do at this point. He's shown to be, at times, your best player this season.
But this is, again, it's a self-serving comment at the beginning of the season by Draymond, which I get. I get his point of view. And to be fair, Trayce Jackson-Davis has played great basketball the last week. Yeah. The best basketball, I would say, of his career. But, like, to me, their best version, I'm talking about the close games, okay, is, Dre, you're the 5, dog, and Kuminga's the 4. And that's what it is. And it's ironic to me that the David Lee thing, where Draymond replaced David Lee and David Lee became kind of marginalized and had to accept his fate, that's kind of what's happening to Draymond. It's funny how the league works like that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Joe. You're on fire. Your closing lineup ideally is what?
Wiggins at the 3, Kuminga at the 4, Dre at the 5, I got Curry at the 1, and then that 2 oscillates between Schroeder, Buddy Hield. I think maybe it's GP2, depending on defensive subs. I think that 2 spot, because that's their biggest hole right now.
It is.
But the 2 spot is kind of up for grabs.
The inconsistency there right now, and Dennis Schroeder
hey, look, he had a big 3 the other night.
He had a big, great. I just the totality of what I've gotten from him right now, it's tough.
They needed a win, though.
Yes, they did, and I'll give him this because we had Anthony Slater join us. What was that? Thursday, Friday, Thursday? You were here Thursday. Thank you. Our 95.7 The Game Warriors insider and covers the team for The Athletic. We love Slates. He was saying give it some time. And Schroeder talked about this to an extent too, and we'll get back to the Kuminga conversation in a second. Robin San Bruno will get to you here.
Can't wait to hear what he says.
But he's saying, listen, I had to adjust to LeBron. It took some time. And when he did adjust to LeBron, we saw it with the Lakers in that series against the Warriors a couple seasons ago. He was a difference maker. He was hounding Steph Curry. His hitting big shots. He was getting to the lane. He was being a distributor of the ball to LeBron, to Anthony Davis. He was huge in that series. So I'm going to give Schroeder some time to adjust. It's hard, whether it's a LeBron, whether it's a Steph, specifically in this system where it's so damn unique and so damn Steph-centric. Trying to find that balance is tough for a guy like Schroeder, whose game is predicated on having the ball in his hands.
Right now, the second best player on the Warriors has been Jonathan Kuminga.
Yes.
Wiggins, maybe the 3rd.
Wiggins at times, I will say, because Wiggins has been playing well. He did not have a good game on Saturday against the
But he did a lot of little things.
But he did a lot of little things. And defensively, he is always there. And I know his IQ is always going to be there week in and week out.
And you know what the Warriors did in the entire second half, which I was like, finally, they're like, we're going to put Plumlee out on Kuminga. Everyone get out of the way and let Kuminga go to work.
Yeah,
like that's the modern NBA. Is at times you do have to isolate the mismatch.
Absolutely. Rob, San Bruno, Rob? What's going on, Rob? You're on with Spadoni and Chesky. How you doing, man? You have a good Christmas?
I'm doing good. How about you? Great Christmas. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah. Man, doing so good.
That's right. Well, look, the last 2 games, I watched the last 2 Warrior games. I wasn't doing nothing at the house, so all I did was watch sports. Look, man, it's time for Steph. It's time for Dre to take a step back. All right? It's been proven. I mean, Kuminga can do everything. I watched him. It's like he was getting to the free throw line with no effort. Like, we're over here passing the ball, all this passing, causing turnovers. No, sometimes you got to get the ball to your best player and let him get to the hoop. And that's exactly what he did. He got to the hoop. He the last 2 games, he coming off the bench, which is an insult to me, and he's still giving you 30. And it's not a hard 30. He getting to the line. He getting to his spots. In a league to where it's a small ball area, to where usually the big 5 men and back in the day is a 4 man or a 3 man. It's small. You got no rim protection. If you got a guy who can get to the hoop at will, and you don't have a guy who can, you're not playing teams that can protect the paint. Outside of Gobert, I mean, Jokic ain't protecting the paint. Nobody, outside of Anthony Davis and Gobert, nobody in the league protecting the paint like that, or Jared Allen in Cleveland. So, and my thing is like this. It's time for Steph to realize, look, you're not that guy no more, pal, and that's fine. Jared Jack had to realize that. Monte had to realize that. It's your turn, Steph. Steph, it's Kuminga's turn now. Steph, if you're a great player, you adjust how you play. Dwayne Wade had to adjust for LeBron James. Kareem had to adjust for Magic. So at the end of the day, it's up to the Warrior fans and Steve Kerr to realize, look, It was fun with Curry. Curry can still be that guy, but he needs to be a number 2 and find ways to work around Kuminga. Same with Draymond Green. Kuminga is the stud right now. You can't convince me to trade him for anybody else. You're not going to find a better player than he is.
Doesn't in the grand scheme of things, because next week when they play the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football, it's win and you get the number 1 overall seed, and if you don't, you fall all the way back and you're going to have to be on the road in that first round. So massive implications there, but also massive implications tonight for the Golden State Warriors, because I want to see them coming off this win, Joe Shasky, going up against the best in the East and a team that quite frankly embarrassed you. They just embarrassed you last time they played in Cleveland, Ohio, the Cavaliers. What they did to you wasn't even a game. I literally turned it on. I remember it was a Friday night. I had the kids, Benny and Nora, we were leaving Target, and I turned the game on. It was RC Davis on our airwaves, and I was waiting to hear the score because it was halftime. And he kind of mumbled the score because it was so egregious. Like, yeah, Warriors down by a lot. It's so-and-so to so-and-so.
It was like 90-40.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I was like, they're not 40 points? Yeah. It's something like that. I was like, oh my God. So, yeah, they need to play for some pride at the very least tonight on their home court.
Well, and I think Jonathan Kuminga needs to continue to play well. You know, like that's important against a very long athletic team with multiple bigs that are very, very good defensively. Obviously, you got the young man drafted out of USC.
Mobley, yeah.
And then you've got Jared Allen. And so this is a team that gives them fits. And Donovan Mitchell traditionally has given them fits. So, you know, this is a big one. You know, like, I just think that everyone's afraid to acknowledge where this is going. And what I mean by where this is going, it's like, Steph's going to be Steph until the eternity of time. It's like, Father Time is undefeated. All right? And very few people get to throw their last pitch, throw their last touchdown, hit their last walk-off in the way Jordan did against the Utah Jazz.
And even he came back for a season with the Wizards.
That's what I'm saying. Like, John Elway was not the same player at the very end, walking off with his finger in the air after the 2 Super Bowls.
Correct. Same with Peyton Manning, also finished with the Broncos in the Broncos uniform.
And no one's saying that Steph can't be great occasionally from night to night. Like, just the other day, he had 10 assists and 1 turnover. He was brilliant, amazing. But the days of him carrying this organization on their backs to a decent seed and then having enough requisite energy to then drag them through the playoffs, I just think those days are over. And I look at the Warriors right now and I say to myself, all right, look, you're not a championship contender. And that's okay. I know we only want to win championships. We won 4. It was amazing. You know what would be fun? Getting back into the playoffs and letting Jonathan Kuminga, let loose in a real playoff series so that he has something to build on from there. Does that mean I stop working the trades? No. I'm always trying to land somebody somewhere. What I'm saying is these Cam Johnson for Kuminga deals, these Jimmy Butler for Wiggins and Kuminga, what are we doing? No. I got to figure out who Jonathan Kuminga is. Okay, and then I'll figure out how much money I want to commit to him. But eventually down the line, this is the guy I'm passing the baton to. We're not there yet. No one's saying this is Kuminga's team, Curry's marginalized. No. This is still Curry's team. I'm saying every now and then, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 times, clear it out and let Jonathan Kuminga go one-on-one with someone. And let's let this guy go downhill. I watched Curry the other night, and again, it was a bad night, but he had 5 turnovers, and like 3 of them were atrocious. And then he took some early shot clock, what I call heaves. And prime Curry could get away with that because he was so spectacular. He's not at 100%.
It's emblematic of the season he's going to have. On Christmas night, he had an amazing performance against LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. He was awesome. It was vintage Steph, vintage LeBron. Again, I use the word vintage. It's not like that anymore on a day-to-day. Exactly. Both LeBron and Steph missed their neck. Oh, I think LeBron played, but he missed the one after that with a tummy ache or something like that. Or he had the flu. Flu's going around, stomach flu. Joe Shasky, he got sick. Yeah. It's going around. Be safe, by the way, people. Use the hand sanitizer, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like that's emblematic of what it's going to be and what it's been this season. He'll have a great game one day. He might, if it's the front end of a back-to-back, he's going to miss that game, and then you don't know what you're going to get after that. Like, it could be another good game, or it could be kind of a pedestrian game. And I think we're just so accustomed to him being great all the time that we've forgotten just how much this wear and tear it gets on. It gets on Steph. It gets on LeBron. It gets on all these players. It got on Kobe, Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki. When you're that talented, but you have to shoulder the load, not just physically, but emotionally too. Like, just think about the last couple seasons, what Stephen Curry has had to deal with, Joe Shasky. The Jordan Poole punch, Klay Thompson, like dealing with all that drama. Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, Bob Myers moving on. You bring in Mike Dunleavy, all with Joe Lacob as your owner. And who wants to win more than Joe Lacob? Not a lot of people. And he will put your money where your mouth is, but he demands excellence out of you too. So there's pressure built into every single thing he does to that. It just is a matter of time for when the emotional part starts hitting the physical as well. And we're seeing it this year, and we're not saying he's washed. No. We're not saying he's cooked, but it's refreshing to see a young guy kind of help out the older guy finally and being consistent in Jonathan Kuminga. It's refreshing to see. So when people try to tell me and tell you like, oh, but we need to, the time is now, the stock's never higher in Jonathan Kuminga. No, we're seeing it with Steph in real time. So you want to bring in Jimmy Butler? That might be the same thing. Like, who's to say Jimmy? Who's to say Jimmy Butler? Right when you trade for him, and the next year he doesn't start getting knee tendinitis.
He's 36.
You don't think that guy has wear and tear on him? Talk about the load that Steph's been shouldering. You kidding me? There's literally a meme of Jimmy Butler exhausted. That's a meme.
Who we equate with Thibodeau, who runs people into the ground. We want to get on this last leg. No. Who also wants $60 million.
And if there's another name out there that I'm missing that you want to go like Sam Lubman last week.
Vucevic.
Okay.
So like this is a big example.
That's not going to take Kuminga.
What?
That's not going to take Kuminga.
But that's my point. See, to me, the move for the Warriors is get another big. Trace is really starting to play well right now. Like, this is where I go to like people. I'm like, hey, we got to watch games now. We can't just talk narratives and big picture and like, are you watching games or are you not? Because when I watch games, you know what I've watched this year? Of the 31 games played, Steph is 10th most games played on the Warriors. He's played 25 games.
That's interesting.
Okay. Do you know who's suited up in every single game, basically, except for the two they had knee tendonitis? Jonathan Kuminga. All right?
Durable.
He's the second highest point scorer right now on the team by just a small margin over Andrew Wiggins. But we would all agree Andrew Wiggins has been given more opportunities in prime situations than Kuminga this year.
Correct.
So,
I've been impressed with Andrew Wiggins.
I have too. He's had a great bounce back.
Yeah.
But so you're telling me in these trade scenarios, you're probably going to have to surrender Kuminga and Wiggins, who are your second and third most reliable players right now?
That's a no-go.
What are we doing?
What
are we doing?
Well, and
we're chasing our tail.
I would like to know, because if you don't believe at 888-957-9570 that anyone's untradeable on this team other than Stephen Curry, I would like to know why and for who. Like, what's the direction? If you are making a trade with Jonathan Kuminga, what's the direction? Sam Lubman last week brought up a guy like Zion Williamson. That's interesting to me. But at the same time, you just mentioned a guy being healthy, and Jonathan Kuminga, for the most part in his career, he's been healthy. And I don't scoff at stuff like that early in someone's career. I think that could be such a big detriment. And it's rare for me when it comes to any sports. When a guy's dealing with so much injuries at the start of his career, whether it's baseball, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, it's very hard for me to just not look at them through they're an injury-prone guy. Through that lens, an injury-prone lens, if you will. Jimmy Garoppolo, at case in point, hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Even early in his career with New England, hurt a lot. And it was just a pinky. It was just a hand thing, right? But it was always something. And whether it was an ankle, whether the ACL, you can't predict stuff like that. But the shoulder, stuff like that. Some guys just will never get it. And with Zion's case, like, the weight is also an issue. We talked to Nick Friedel, our Odyssey NBA insider. That is a real thing.
That's a red flag for me.
He was just at the Smoothie King Center and watched them play. And he said it looked like he gained a lot of the weight back. And Nick was saying that it was just, it's disappointing to see something like that, because you see the talent, the raw ability, and to watch a guy eat away his career like that sucks. And that scares the hell out of me. Oh, but if he gets in our culture and he gets in our system. Yeah, but no. Sometimes a Jamarcus Russell is just a Jamarcus Russell. And you know what? Maybe people don't like that comp because Zion's done a hell of a lot more in the NBA than Jamarcus has. But don't get it twisted. Jamarcus Russell, and who played at LSU and played in the state of Louisiana, by the way, one of the most talented players in the history of the sport. The guy was a physical specimen that could throw the length of the football field. He had some mobility. He could do it all. It was the up here, though.
Yeah.
And just didn't care. Like, that's the thing to me. Do you care? I know Jonathan Kuminga cares. When he makes comments,
I totally agree
like
with you.
When he says, I want to be like Kobe, and he has that picture, I want to stay in this Golden State Warrior uniform for the rest of my career. People laughed at that. Warriors fans were already ready to ship him off when he made those comments. What was it, a year ago, 2 years ago? He wanted to be a Warrior for life. You know what? That means something to me if I'm a fan. In the day and age where the young guys, like a Jonathan Kuminga, want to just go be buddy or because they grew up watching LeBron move from team to team. They grew up watching Kevin Durant move from OKC to the Golden State Warriors, to the Brooklyn Nets, to now the Phoenix Suns. Like, they watched some of their favorite players bounce around. But for him to say that Kobe was my favorite player and he stayed on one uniform his whole career and I want to do that in Golden State, that means something to me if I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. So yes, I would like to build around guys like that instead of a guy like a Zion Williamson.
It's the guy has done very little wrong, and yet he has been one of the most scrutinized players that I can remember in one of my local team's jerseys. It's kind of wild to me. It's wild to me. And look, has there been times where I've been frustrated with him? Absolutely. Absolutely. Did I love him pouting in the playoffs a couple years ago? Not really. I didn't love that at all. I didn't love what he said about the coach at certain points.
It was an immature, but he was an immature player at that point.
Absolutely. And he was also in a tough situation.
Correct.
Which I think also we all can relate to, doing something that we regret.
Scottie Pippen famously sat on the bench because he didn't like a play call and he wasn't getting the ball in a playoff game.
I know.
Scottie Pippen, one of the greatest players of all time. Like, imagine he did that today in today's day and age of social media. He'd be eviscerated.
I mean, Cam Ward's being eviscerated for a meaningless game.
Oh.
It's an exhibition game, and he's being eviscerated for leaving the game
where the
early.
Trophy is a Pop-Tart microwave.
I mean, you fight on the sidelines in games like that.
Toaster. It's a toaster, not a microwave.
But I think a large part of the Jonathan Kuminga conversation also revolves around Draymond and, in particular, Steph Curry. And, I look at Steph Curry, it's like, all right, so 2020, 2021, he averaged 32 points a game. That was remarkable. An absolutely remarkable season. And then he got back up to about 25 and a half. And that was the year they won it all right? And then almost 30, 29.4. And that was the year that they lost to the Lakers. Last year, down to 26. This year, and it's a 25-game sample. This is not a 5-game sample. This is a 25-game sample. It's about a third of his season. He's under 23 points a game. That's his lowest since he was 24 years old. That's 12 years ago. And I think that a large part of how we have to view this is that this is not prime Steph anymore. All right, now, is he still great? Of course he is. But the other night is a great example. He had the around the back shot, one hand, as he's floating, running,
incredible,
and throw it in. And it was a highlight that everyone saw online. But if you watched the game in the final 6 minutes, Jonathan Kuminga willed them to a win. Yeah. Draymond Green had a big stop. You know what Steph did? He clanked a couple and turned it over.
5 turnovers for Stephen Curry.
And I think 3 were in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that Curry's done and he's fit. No, what I'm saying is
by the way,
the guy just he doesn't look right this year. Yeah. And I think that any conversation about who you trade and what you're bringing in has to start with acknowledging that Steph is not one of the top 5 players in the league currently. It's okay. It happens.
What is the show fade out of the Niners?
Well, no,
as the season's fading to black, if you will.
It is fading to black. Well, it already did end.
Sopranos.
But there are things to play for.
Like what?
Well, so for example, obviously the easy one is Brock Purdy, right? Oh, Brock Purdy, can he play well? I don't even know who's playing for the...
I'm happy with Brock Purdy.
I don't even know who's playing for the Detroit Lions. Well, doesn't matter to me. Just, can you play a good game? When was the last time Brock had a good game? A really good game?
Boy. The Bears? Yeah, Bears, he was really good.
Okay. Was that a month ago?
The Bears stink, so I don't know.
Bears have lost 10 in a row.
They're awful.
And look, but you know what? Point made. You're right. He did. He had a really good game against the Bears. Man, it feels like that was a lifetime ago.
Right?
I mean, a lifetime ago. One of my number ones, Ricky Pearsall. What are you? Can you do anything?
It's tough.
No, I'm legitimately asking the question. Ricky Pearsall, hello? I'm watching rookies make plays all over the field in every game.
We have 4 rookies for the first time in NFL history reach 1,000 yards receiving. 4 rookies. It's my guy, Brian Thomas Jr. It's my guy, Brock Bowers. Receivers, I said, not wide receivers, but I got Lad McConkey and I got Malik Neighbors. All 1,000-yard receivers as rookies. All of them drafted. Actually, not all of them drafted in the first round. Only 3 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of them, Ladd McConkey, a guy the 49ers could have had.
I know.
Just, by the way, you just think back to that Georgia team in offense. And like people are wondering why they took a step back this season on offense.
Pretty
when
obvious.
you lose a rookie who's probably going to be an all-pro in Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey who's going to be a Pro Bowler. Yeah, you're going to take a step back. And by the way, Carson Beck, he's announcing himself for the NFL draft. I don't know where he's going to get drafted. And the New England Patriots, by the way, a guy that they already sold on him, Drake May, who they drafted out of North Carolina this year, they're primed to have the number 1 overall pick. So it's going to be interesting to see the Raiders, the Giants, the Titans, who's going to try to trade the bag, if you will, to try to get maybe a guy that they may be infatuated with, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. That's for another day, another conversation, just to keep your eyes on in regards to the NFL and their storylines. Because with the NFL, and we were talking about the NBA, there's storylines galore. It doesn't matter. We could find something in this lost year for the San Francisco 49ers when it comes to the NFL, and we could take the whole shows with it. Like Brock Purdy, what is he playing for?
I'll tell you. He's playing to can you throw 20 touchdowns, dog? Ooh. There are 13 quarterbacks that have thrown 20 touchdowns or more. All right? And there's a lot of guys with 19, 18. Caleb Williams has more touchdowns right now passing than Brock Purdy. That's insane to me.
And Caleb Williams, potentially, I don't think he's going to break it, but he was on pace for a little bit to break David Carr's record of getting the most sacks in a rookie season. Yeah. Getting sacked the most times.
You know who else? Kirk Cousins has more touchdown passes than Brock Purdy.
Kirk Cousins.
Jalen Hurts, who has been critiqued every turn about his passing, has more touchdown passes than him. You don't even want to know. Do you know how many Bo Nix has?
How many?
25.
Wow.
How about, you want to really Jaden Daniels, 25? Sam Darnold has 35 touchdown passes.
We were talking about it being a down year for quarterbacks. Like what? For more than half the season, Joe Shasky? And we were all saying, oh, what's the problem with the quarterbacks? What's the problem? Mel Kiper saying it's the too high safety look. So we got to outlaw it. It was good for a segment here on the Morning Roast. Thank you, Mel. That's all. I'll give him credit there. Producing for us and for national media. But boy, has that tone shifted when it comes to quarterback play in the NFL. We were all up against, Brock, it's okay. It's just a down year for quarterbacks. All of a sudden, it looks like, if you missed out on a rookie quarterback in the first round this year, boy, do you feel stupid. Las Vegas Raiders.
Atlanta, if you're Atlanta, aren't you thinking, boy, maybe we make the move 5 weeks earlier and win the playoffs?
Right? Like Michael Penix, so he made some mistakes last night. Yeah, it was a bad interception, but you know what? It's his second game.
Exactly.
He made more throws that I was like, wow, I'm excited about than mistakes made yesterday. By the way, if you had the over in Michael Penix passing yards yesterday, you're sick. It's 224.5 passing yards. The over-under, 223.
Sam Darnold has thrown 35 touchdown passes and been sacked 46 times.
It's incredible.
Everybody's like, he's got a great O-line. He's running for his life and making plays simultaneously. The O-line has played well, but he has 46 sacks.
People are now realizing, too, he's way more athletic than people get him credit for. He's not as stiff in the pocket like people want to think he is.
I had him all
He's
wrong.
A great athlete. He's big. He's strong. Yeah. He could hit stick guys if you need him to. It is like, good luck to some of these corners trying to bring him down sometimes. It's incredible as we're taking kind of a macro view of all the quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Like Sam Darnold, and the reports were coming out over the weekend, Vikings want to extend him.
I know.
Which I don't blame them for doing that, right?
There is a question like, did the Niners mess this up again? And I'm not saying I would have kept Sam Darnold and would have moved off of Brock Purdy, but like, you had him in the building. He didn't look anything like this.
No.
And now he looks amazing. Now, they're going to get credit somehow for this rehab thing, but the credit goes to Minnesota.
Kevin O'Connell, you kidding me?
Yeah,
the credit goes to this guy. What he's been able to do
with Kirk Cousins.
And now Sam Darnold, what he's been able to do to empower his quarterbacks. And we watched him on not only the receiver doc, but the wide receiver, the receiver doc and the quarterback doc, I should say. Both of them on Netflix. Uh-huh. We watched them with the Kirk Cousins aspect and with Justin Jefferson. That's a guy you want to play for.
Yeah.
That guy is fired up. He's smart. He takes accountability. He will get after you when he needs to. Like when Kirk had that audible last year, or 2 years ago, I guess it is, in the quarterback sneak. And he's like, what the hell were you doing there? Like, why did you do that? Like, trust me.
Yeah.
I trust you. Can you trust me kind of a thing? And boy, does he have a lot of trust in Sam Darnold right now. By the way, so much so in yesterday's game, they were throwing on third down when they needed to ice the game and try to run the clock. They said, no, we're going to throw it because By the way, somehow the Packers came back. I turned that game off. I was like, and then I saw late. How are they in it?
I have no idea.
And somehow they got back into it.
The Jordan Love special.
Right, exactly. That's what he does. They're a tick below the Packers, by the way, when it comes to the best in the NFC.
Well, I look at all these quarterbacks around the league, and like they're throwing to a lot of different guys. They're spreading the ball around. Everybody's under duress. Offensive line play around the league is terrible outside of 2 spots, Philly and Detroit. It feels like.
And that goes back to college.
Buffalo as well. I think Josh Allen only has 14 sacks this year.
Yeah.
But Baker Mayfield's thrown for 39 touchdowns. And they have been all over the place in terms of injuries. There's injuries galore. So you're asking me, like, what is there to play for? Who needs to play well? Is there anything Brock can show you? Like, I got a couple guys I'm going to throw at you. Can George Kittle eclipse 1,000 yards? He's at 967, right? Can he eclipse Brandon Ayuk's 75 catches from last year? He's at 68 right now, okay? I think he's going to get both those marks. The other guy is Juwan Jennings. He's at 856 this year for yards. I didn't have Juwan Jennings having a 1,000-yard season on this team heading into the year.
No.
I'd like to see him do that. I want to see Kittle get to double-digit touchdowns, right? So this goes back to the quarterback play. Like, can we spread the ball around these last 2 games, and can we get some of these guys hitting these individual marks? Because I think Juwan Jennings is a guy I want to keep around for a couple years. Is he a 1? No. But I like him. He's a good player. You know, if I told you right now, Ricky Pearsall has 190 yards this year.
That's honestly incredible. How poor he's been, like, in
190 yards.
You know what's crazy? I'm on the yards list, the total yards receiving list right now, Joe Shasky. I'm sure you are too. The fact that I keep having to click show more to the receiver list till I get to Ricky Pearsall. It's incredible.
Kyle Juszczyk has 142.
That can't happen. Like, that just can't happen. Can we scheme the guy just to get him confidence early in a game? Like, get him the ball. Get him early touches. I'm not saying he's your best weapon on offense. That's clearly George Kittle at this point. But my God, I know I can get Ladd McConkey the ball. You're telling me, Ricky Pearsall, you can't do what Ladd McConkey does? You're supposed to be bigger than him. You're supposed to be maybe a better route runner than him. That's what Brian Baldinger, our 95 the Game Insider, said. Throughout the year, he thought he was Ladd McConkey, but a little bit bigger. He's not. Like, I don't know what he is right now, and that's the frustrating part. And maybe this is just a lost season for him, and hopefully he comes back healthy next year. But as we were talking about guys and staying healthy and stuff like that, and thankfully he has stayed healthy. I mean, quite frankly, if he was hurt at this point, that would have been just like, why? You haven't really done anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he was hurt early on this season, and then he gets shot, all that's like just this trickle down effect. And the fact that he just really hasn't done anything to get you excited other than that Tampa Bay game, it's just been disappointing.
You know what it reminds me of?
That's just the word you use, is disappointing.
Yeah, no doubt. So, like, this is going way back in the 49er time machine here. Everyone's going to say, AJ Jenkins. Yeah, okay. AJ Jenkins didn't even play. Like, he didn't even suit up for the Niners. I think he only suited up like 3 games. Like, I'm talking suited up.
Yeah.
They took a guy.
He's also a way higher profile name than Ricky Pearsall. I didn't know who Ricky Pearsall was. I knew who AJ Jenkins was.
I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
When they took Rashawn Woods in 2004, they needed receiver help.
Yep.
Rashawn Woods played in 14 games, had 7 catches for 160 yards. Ricky Pearsall's in the Rashawn Woods zone.
Oh, no.
That's like a zone you don't ever want to be in.
No. Shout out Tony. You don't want to be in that. He ruins your zone right now.
Now, we know the circumstances, but can this guy be a factor in one of these last 2 games?
You don't want to sound insensitive, but at what point can you, like, break through that? It's like, okay, we acknowledge what happened, but like, we can't be leaning on that all the time. And honestly, that's not fair.
I just want one game.
Exactly. And I don't think Ricky wants that to be hung over his hat either. Like, he doesn't want to keep saying, like, people feeling sorry for him and stuff. Because Lord knows I don't like people feeling sorry for me if I'm struggling. That's the last thing I want, is people feeling sorry for me.
You ever go to the gym and it's an empty gym and you're just taking shots up by yourself?
Sure.
Do you ever end on a miss?
No.
You have to end on a hit.
Even if it's a layup. Like, I need to see the ball go through the net. Yes.
That's the Ricky Pearsall season. You've missed 1,000 jumpers in an empty gym. Just let's end this year with a couple of makes. That's all. I just want a couple of plays to end the year positively. I look at this wide receiver core. I'm like, all right, Kittle, let's get him to 1,000, even though he's your tight end. Let's get him to 10 touchdowns. Let's get Jennings to over 1,000. That might not be doable, but that'll be something I could be like, all right, you know what? In a lost year, silver lining, Juwan Jennings had a career year. George Kittle had another great year. And can I finish strong with Ricky Pearsall? Because I don't think this run game's getting you anything.
888-957-9570. What are you looking for from the 49ers tonight? Who is this game important for any Niners? Hey, Ricky Pearsall on line 1, Brock Purdy line 2, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call or text the Comcast Biz text line. And by the way, you can hit us up via Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, all powered by First NorCal Credit Union. We are streaming on all of those platforms. And for a low-rate auto loan, apply online or just ask for First NorCal financing at the dealer, Joe Shasky.
And like one more guy, and this is the other side of the ball. Hey, Nick Bosa, I know you're hurt. I do. I know you're hurt. I get it. Since your Defensive Player of the Year, when you had 18 and a half sacks, the last 2 years, you have 17 and a half sacks. I'll say that again. You had 18 and a half sacks, your Defensive Player of the Year season. Since then, in the regular season, you have 17 and a half sacks in the last 2 seasons. What the hell?
I watched a guy yesterday on a dumpster fire historically of an organization, in a dumpster fire of a team, and a guy that gives it his all every single week on the defensive end side of the ball. Myles Garrett, 4 consecutive seasons with at least 14 sacks. That's an NFL record.
That's
Have
crazy.
The Browns been good during most of his tenure? No, they have not. But they've been the Cleveland Browns for the most part.
Awful.
Do you think he's sweating that? You think he cares? Do you think has his play changed at all? And I am using him as a comparison to Nick Bosa, because you know what? They're both top 5 picks, obviously. Myles Garrett being a number 1 overall pick, Nick Bosa being a number 2 overall pick. Yeah, I'm going to compare you to Myles Garrett. I'm going to compare you to TJ Watt. And when things aren't going well around Myles Garrett, do you think he's complaining? I can't name anyone else on that. Can you name anyone else on the defensive line for the...
They had the Zadarius Smith guy. That was it.
He's not there anymore.
No, I know, but that's
he's on what? The Lions now, Zadarius Smith? Right?
Yes.
So Myles Garrett, what I saw from him yesterday against a Miami Dolphins team that was just infinitely better than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's just not an NFL quarterback. No. It was brutal, honestly, to watch the late game slate yesterday. I was just getting depressed watching some of the football I saw yesterday.
I had a hard time watching football yesterday.
It was just not good.
Well, I was also sad by the Niners. Like when the Niners, it's one thing if they're awful all year. It's another when they've had the year that they've had. It's hard for me to watch, for example, the Commanders last night or Atlanta. Like both those organizations, it's like life was breathed into those organizations with their young quarterbacks. Even watching the Broncos versus Cincinnati. I'm watching
great game.
It was an unbelievable game. I struggled to watch some of these other games. Like Philly, I love Saquon. I do. I can't stand Philly. It's hard for me to watch them. They were dead in the water last year. And for them to bounce back the way they did, and for us to be where we're at, it's a tough pill to swallow.
It's hard for me. Thank you, Tony. It's hard for me to watch them in another way because I did not want to watch Kenny Pickett versus Cooper Rush. Well, that's the thing. Both of those guys stink. They're not very good. They're backup quarterbacks. And to your point, that is what I'm circling tonight, because I am interested to see Jared Goff versus Brock Purdy, because I think they are very, very similar. I think Brock's a little bit more athletic with his legs. I think Jared has a little bit better of an arm than Brock Purdy. But I think they are very similar when I'm looking at when things need to go right for a player around them. They are the poster child for it right now. They are a step below the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons. That's okay. I think Brock Purdy and Jared Goff can win a Super Bowl when things are around them. Do I think they could have a Nick Foles type of run? Yes, I do. I believe that. Can they have an Eli Manning type of run? Yes, I do. When things are around them, it's going well. I do think that the arm strength of a Nick Foles, by the way, was underrated, and the touch of Eli Manning are super underrated when we look back. By the way, put a pin in this just real quick. Eli Manning potentially being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Talk about jokes of all jokes. I don't give a damn if he won 2 freaking Super Bowls against Tom Brady. Look at that guy's stats. He is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. And when the likes of a Terrell Owens, who is infinitely better at his position at wide receiver than Eli Manning was at quarterback, is not getting in first ballot because of his attitude, that's a joke to me. Well, it's a joke. I'm sorry.
He's a Manning.
I don't give a damn if he's a Manning. Archie's not a Hall of Famer.
I'm with you.
Come on, man.
I'm with you.
It's a joke. I'm sorry.
My favorite Eli Manning stat, or one of them, is that there's those 2 runs to the Super Bowl that he had to beat Brady, but outside of those years, didn't win a playoff game.
It didn't do anything.
It's so, the entire career was basically made off 2 catches, David Tyree and Mario Manningham.
So you guys are talking about stats and whatnot. And
sorry, that was a little side tangent.
No, I like it.
But when I'm talking about guys that would need things to go well around them, Brock Purdy, I believe, can be like an Eli, a Nick Foles, or Jared Goff. They can be all lumped in together.
Well,
and they
let
can
me
win
ask you
Super
about
Bowls.
Jared Goff. Let me ask you about Jared Goff.
Marin zone.
What do you guys think of Jared Goff? Like, if I threw stats at you, because I'm looking at him right here, and I was thinking about this last night. If I do the stats at you, I bet you the stats are way more impressive than you want to give it credit for, because I do dismiss Jared. I like Jared. I do. I root for him. I wanted the Niners to draft him. They won a meaningless game at the end of the year and gave the Rams a bunch of ammunition to trade up to go get him. I wanted the Niners to get him because I thought pocket quarterbacks was the way to go, because Brady was winning everything at that time.
And he looked great offensively in Sonny Dykes' system, obviously at Cal, and he looked good.
And he wore 16.
And he's a local guy.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But his career has been way better, I think, than we want to give it credit for. Just since that first year where he had 5 touchdowns and 7 picks, and it was just awful.
No, Jeff Fisher.
Yeah. He went 28 touchdowns, 7 picks, 32-12, 22-16, and this is when they kind of started to lose faith in him. 20-13, the injured-riddled season of 2020. First year with the Detroit Lions, basically an upstart, brand new thing. 19-8. It's better than Brock's year this year. Okay? Then he went 29-7, 30-12, 33-10 this year. He's got 220 touchdown passes in his career and under 100 interceptions.
He's been very good. He's been very good. And for being drafted number 1 overall, I know we think about in the biggest game of his career, Sean McVay and him both just got punked. It is what it is. Bill Belichick just punked him. Like,
yeah, I know.
And conversely, Tom Brady, Loki got punked by Wade Phillips, defensive coordinator at the time for the Los Angeles Rams.
True.
Julian Edelman won that MVP in that game. It was just, that was one. By the way, I was like going back to that. I was by myself at the old building, cutting highlights for that game for the Super Bowl. It was lonely. And we had the game on 95.7 the game. We had the Super Bowl then. And
CJ Anderson.
Yeah, CJ Anderson. It was just literally, I cut like 10 catches from Julian Edelman because he had like 10 catches for 100 something. They won the game. Remember how it started off? They tried to do the Philly special play. And it was right out of Tom's fingertips. But yeah, Jared Goff, I think, has been underrated for his career.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And I think when I look at his career, like, the one thing I'll give him credit for is that the guy is kind of unflappable during the regular season, in the sense that, like, he doesn't miss games. He's been relatively healthy. 15, 16, 16, 15, 14, 17, 17, 15. He's played a lot of games.
Yeah.
And I do think this year, more than any other, I've been very impressed with his ability to move better than he has in years past in the pocket. Yeah. When you got him off his platform, it was like, done, finished, can't do it. This year, he's moved around a little more. He'll never be Josh. He'll never be Jaden Daniels. That's just not who he is. No. But in terms of being able to reset his feet, he's been a lot better.
I think we all watched that Bills-Lions game and just saw Josh Allen be Superman. And I think a lot of us were like, see, that's the difference there. Look at the stats in that. Jared Goff had like 500 yards in that game.
He was amazing.
He was also amazing.
He was amazing.
But because of his physical limitations in comparison to a freak athlete in Josh Allen, which is what he is a freak athlete. Yeah. Like, we all look at him in a different way, which is not fair, because I'm not making this compare. It's different. I'm not comparing him to Joe Montana, but it's just funny when Joe Montana had a lot of good stuff around him. When you compared him to a Dan Marino sometimes, right? And I'm sure there was a regular season game. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they never. But I'm sure there were fans out there who's like, wow, look at the difference in the arm strength and the arm talent at times. But there's subtle differences with certain situations and certain things. Maybe that competent people are going to poo-poo, but there's just, it's okay to say that Jared Goff isn't Josh Allen, but you can't win with him. And I think we're at that point with Brock Purdy to say it's okay that he's not Josh Allen, because I think a lot of 49ers fans last year saw his MVP candidacy and says, no, he's just as good, if not better. Hell, I was on these airways last year, Joe Shasky, saying, I know we're up against it. I was up on these airways saying, last season on this Niners team, I'm taking Brock Purdy over Josh Allen. Last season, because the interceptions and the fumbles of Josh, he just wasn't taking care of the football. And I saw a more decisive quarterback at times. Now, fast forward to this year. That's laughable to say.
We get new facts.
Exactly.
Like, when you have new facts, if you don't acknowledge them, then you kind of sound silly. You know, at one point, I thought Darnold was garbage. He's had a great year. And I tip my cap to the guy. Yeah. I do. Now, would I want to give him $60 million for the next 3-4 years? Probably not. Like, I would say the same thing I would say to CJ Stroud and all these Brock last year. Do it again.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a pay raise this year. right? It's the same thing I'm looking at with Brock. Like, Brock had a bad year. Can you bounce back the way Jared Goff has kind of bounced back and reinvented himself over the last couple of versions, whether it was at the end of the Rams run and his beginning with Detroit or this year in particular? He's evolved as a player.